All right, gang. First of all, thanks for coming to the Excerpt channel and checking out this excerpt, clip, if you will, of an ASP podcast episode from the recent past. So you know it's not a whole episode. Whole episodes are available only on the app in the video form. You can listen anywhere you want, any podcast outlet. Listen to the audio version, not a problem. For the video version, if you want to watch the whole thing, get the app. It is literally free to watch on the app. No payment, no subscription required. Go over there, check it out, and I hope you enjoy the clip. Well, alrighty, gang. Welcome back once again to the Active Self-Protection Podcast. I am yet again your host, Mike Williver, and I remain, with any luck at all, your favorite former Fed. With me today, a new friend of mine. His name is Josh.
BakerTargets.com is where I get the targets you see me shoot all the time on Active Self-Protection Extra. They ship fast, their prices are great, and they have all kinds of targets, both for competitive shooting, defensive shooting, and fun too. Check them out.
Josh is from the, if I can manage to say this right, Chehalis?
Chehalis.
Chehalis. I was so close. Chehalis, Washington area. He's currently in an agricultural field and is looking to join the United States Coast Guard. Josh, welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Mike.
Very good. So you've got a couple of small stories and one slightly bigger story, all of which revolve around a family member, and I feel your pain as it relates to that. Having family members that cause some unhappiness and discontent in the family. I can certainly relate to that. Before we start all that, you mentioned before we hit the record button, you've heard a lot of the episodes of the podcast. I assume you watched the Active Self-Protection YouTube channel as well?
Yes, I do. I've followed you guys for a couple of years, and let's just say you're the main reason why I listened to your story on the barefooted defender, and that's why I carry like 4 extra fully loaded AR mags next to my AR. So
yeah,
I've definitely learned a few things from you guys.
Yeah, Stephen Williford is a true American hero, and that guy was like literally loading a mag with loose rounds on his way to go interrupt an active shooter, which is, it's still one of the highest rated episodes we have of all time, for good reason, because it is a really compelling story. If you haven't heard that one, go back. It's in the first year, I think, of the podcast. Back when I was listing them with seasons and episode numbers. I don't even bother that anymore because it's been 3 years. We're over 200 episodes. It doesn't matter. So tell us a little bit about yourself before, I can't say before any of this happened because I don't know how long ago it happened, because as you know, and as the audience should know by now, I try to get as little about the story as I can prior to speaking to people on the show, so that I can kind of be surprised and ask questions on the fly rather than having a bunch of pre-prepared questions. I don't find that to be a fantastic format. So were you, before the first incident that you were going to talk about, were you sort of a self-defender? Were you sort of prepared? Did you have that in your mindset? Not everyone does, and it's okay if you didn't.
Yeah, so for me, like, this goes way back. I was like, I don't know, like 8 or 9, and I had gotten a wilderness survival book, and that started the whole, self-preservation, self-defense, whole onslaught for the rest of my life. I watched videos, listened to podcasts. I've read a lot of books on defense and everything. And so, yeah, it definitely got me into it. My parents, I want to preface, they're great parents, but they didn't necessarily see how I saw things until like 2020 and the whole pandemic and everything. And so, being the way I was like, I gotta be prepared for all these things. I'd watch a video on how to properly handle a knife, and I'd be practicing that, and my dad would go, "Josh, don't do that. You're practicing to hurt someone." I'm like, well, I'm practicing to try and live, but right. All that. And then one thing that kind of helps to realize for the stories coming up is both me and my little brother were adopted from different families into this one family. So grace of God that we ended up in a very wonderful family right there. So yeah.
Yeah, you love to hear it. Were you in a foster situation, or do you want to? I don't know if you want to talk about that or not. What was your situation before getting adopted, and how old were you, if you don't mind me asking?
So, So for my situation, it was, and no hate on my biological parents, they just weren't the smartest knives in the tool shed. That's kind of how it went. So about 2 weeks old, my adoptive parents, get a call to the hospital. There's me, 2 weeks old, and then they start, fostering me. Eventually, they kind of figure out that, hey, my biological mom, not very smart, not fully her fault. She just never grew up in a way so that she got smart enough. But they eventually adopted me by the time I was 4 years old. And then, more backstory for my little brother. He was found in a police raid on his biological parents' house by, I'm gonna say the DEA, because it was an active meth house that they found him upstairs in a crib in.
Mm.
So he was always kind of messed up a little bit from that. So
Do you know how old he was when that went down? Like, was he? If he, the difference if he was 3 months or 3 years. That's why I'm asking.
I'm not actually sure what age. I know he was still in diapers, so that kind of gives you an idea. But yeah, that was definitely not a good situation for him. So thankfully, my parents decided, hey, here's a kid who needs help. We're gonna help him out, and they adopted him. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot better situation here than it was there. So
Sure, and I can absolutely relate to that. My late mother was she tried her best, as my pastor likes to say. She did her best, which wasn't great by anyone's standards. So it warms my heart to hear anytime someone look at, if you're a couple, there's nothing, there's no rules that you have to go out and adopt a child and change your entire life and take that responsibility on. So people that do it, I think, are really special in a lot of
mm-hmm.
ways. And a lot of times the foster care system is, well, we all know it's not great. It's not ideal. That's one of the reasons why we have our conference every year at the foster teen camp out in Flint Hills in Kansas, to help those young people get some exposure to something hopefully positive and good. We talked about Jesus a little bit, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the first incident with the little brother, kind of walk us through that, and I'll just tell us in your own words. I'm not going to try to guide you through it. It's your story.
Yeah, so the first incident, this happened before the incident I emailed you about.
Okay.
But this kind of leads up, kind of shows you what happens before then. So we were probably 10, 12 years old. And around that time, I had just started getting into defensive stuff and everything. And this is going to sound like a tangent, but I promise it ties back in.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. I had watched a video where they were teaching self-defense hand to hand. And one of the things, you see it in the movies, someone's coming overhand with a knife to stab you, and you put up your arm, you block it, reach the other arm, do all this weird stuff.
Right.
And this video was saying, hey, don't even try all that. All you have to do is, if they're, doing anything with their arm, if you lock down their shoulder, this arm's not going to do much. They can't really do anything. So they showed, stepping in, hugging the shoulder, and then going from there. So being just two kids playing out in the woods. We were out building something. I don't remember what, but me and him, of course, brothers, getting into a fight. We gotta do it this way. No, we gotta do it that way. And it got to a point to where I remember, and I remember this actually fairly vividly, just because it gets ingrained. But I remember I threw down a stick. It accidentally hit him in the face, just like the end of it. But it hit him, and then he is using like a sharpened wooden stick as a tool or something. And You know, when you're dealing with someone who they're kind of out of their mind wanting to kill you or something, you can kind of see it in their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that was the first time I ever saw that look in my little brother's eyes. I remember he raised the stick overhand, sharp end pointed at me, and he yelled, "I'm going to kill you."